Our guest this morning is a first-time guest on our show, and it's a privilege and an honor to welcome Andy Allen from the Fallon store of Driveline and Gear Service. Andy, welcome to the Car Buyer Advisor.
Hey, thanks, man. Glad to be here.
Let's start a little bit, if you will, with your history with Driveline and Gear Service, which has a shop here on Glendale and Reno, and yours out in Fallon. How long have you been with the company, and where did that all start?
Well, it started when I lived in Reno. I started in 1994 with Tom, and I worked there until he decided to expand and build a new store out here in Fallon, which was around the 04, 05 is when we started talking about it, but the building didn't happen until about 06, which is when I came out to Fallon.
So you worked in the Reno location for about 12 years.
Yes, sir.
And now you've been out in Fallon for half a dozen years.
That's right.
You know, I think it says something that when somebody has that kind of longevity with a company, it actually says even more about the individual when the owner of the company allows one of their staff members to do an interview on a show like this, his confidence in you. But your longevity says something about a company. And tell me why you've been with Driveline and Gear so many years.
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of a two-way street there. You know, I care about what I do. I've always wanted to make sure that I do a good job and do it right. And I mean, if that means taking it back apart 3 or 4 times to make sure that it was done right and the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted, that's what I did. And you know, Tom noticed that and has kind of put me in positions to move forward and progress in other areas. And eventually, I kind of just learned the whole business from drive shafts to the gears and the differentials to the customer relations and ordering parts and everything. And Tom's just a great guy to work for, and he considers me, I guess, a great employee. So that's where we're at today.
Well, and I will agree with you. Tom Hauptman, the owner of Driveline and Gear Service, is an extraordinary member of our community, a terrific businessman, and he's committed to excellence. And that's just exhibited by the quality of work that comes out of their shop. I think what's interesting is you said that you would do something over and over again if you had to. I mean, that doesn't happen every day, but it's that commitment to getting it right the first time that really comes from the core values of the business and the business owner.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the way I look at things is this: is if I bring my car to somebody and I'm going to trust them to fix my vehicle, I would want them to do it in a way that I would walk away knowing that it was done right and I can drive it without having to worry about it. And that's exactly how I treat the customers when they come in. I mean, I want them to be able to trust us the way that I would want to trust somebody else, and I treat their car just like it's mine. I mean, that's how I've always done it. So.
Well, one of the conversations, the topic that I wanted to have with you today is about the most common causes of transfer case failure. And first, let's start by identifying the transfer case, what it does in the vehicle for some of our lay persons that may not understand even what the transfer case does.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, first off, a lot of people have never even heard the word transfer case, so that the knowledge is definitely minimal out there. A transfer case, basically, what it does is you have an engine that drives everything. So there's only one engine, and so to make a four-wheel drive, you have to have a driving axle in the rear of a vehicle and in the front. So in order for the engine to produce 2 drive outputs, you have to have what they call a transfer case, or some people call it a gear splitter, but the right term is transfer case. And what that does is it takes one input drive and turns it into 2 output drives, one going to the front differential and one going to the rear differential.
And what are the most common causes of failure of a transfer case for the four-wheel drive system in a car or truck?
Well, I would say drivetrain in general, but transfer cases especially is just neglect. Again, a lot of people have never even heard of a transfer case or even a driveline, but they don't even realize that there's fluids, oil in a transfer case, and therefore they never even think to check it. Don't even know they have to. And a lot of times, if you get a vehicle in here with around the 100,000-mile mark or more, of course, you pull the fill plug out to check the fluid in it, and you stick your pinky in there, and you can't fill any fluid. I mean, the fluid has never been checked, never been changed, and it's almost out. And of course, when fluids get low, the lubrication qualities go down, and heat is what kills everything. So I would say number one, first and foremost, is neglect.
And how often should somebody actually check or even change the fluids in a transfer case if they haven't thought about this in the past and they're looking at their odometer now and they haven't done it? How often should they have been doing this?
Well, I mean, that's actually kind of the cool part about drivetrains. You know, a lot of people get away with never doing it ever, but you know, I would say every 30,000 miles is when you should change the fluids. But you know, every year or so, you know, some people put more than 20 or 30,000 miles on in a year, but most people out there don't. So I would say every year it would be good to check for most people, and every 25 to 30,000 miles it's good to change them.
Well, and I think it's really interesting. You had shared with me earlier that sometimes these transfer cases will come up with without any leaks, but still low or out of fluid.
Yeah, I'm convinced. I mean, I have the you know, the engineers from all these fluid manufacturing companies and stuff. They tell me it's not possible, but just in my 18 years of experience, you know, I'm still new at this, but in my 18 years, almost every time, you know, a lot of, and it's always, I'll step back a little bit. Some of the transfer cases in the earlier model vehicles ran gear oil, like 90-weight gear oil. Never really had much of a problem with oil, just seemed to be missing out of those. But most of your modern vehicles have ATF, automatic transmission fluid, for the fluid in a transfer case, and it seems like every single time we check them, if they've never been checked and they've got some substantial amount of miles on them, they're low, and there's no leak. There's no signs of it ever leaking, but the fluid is gone. You know, so like I say, in my experience, I think it evaporates, but the engineers seem to want to deny that. But you know, all I know is that they are low, and sometimes they're so low, I'll pull the drain plug and there's a cup of fluid that comes out. And they're supposed to hold almost 3 quarts. There's
another real significant contributor to drivetrain or transfer case failure. Tell us what that is.
A big one is tire sizes. If a lot of people don't realize this, but a 4-wheel drive, you know, all your gears have to match. Everything has to be the same ratio. And what happens when you say you blow a tire out on the side of the road and your tires are, you know, maybe 30% left in their life until you need to get new tires anyways, but the one blows out, so they replace just one tire. Well, now you have one tire that's brand new, you know, and it changes. It's a different diameter than the old tires, even though the tire size on the side of the tire says the same size, exact same maker, everything. They are a different diameter because you've got an inch more of tread, you know. So what happens, that basically changes the ratio. So now you have, say if it's on your front differential, you have a front differential that's turning at a different rate than your rear differential because of the tire size. So something's got to give. You know, your transfer case is basically married together from the front to the rear. Something's got to give, and typically it's a transfer case, or sometimes it will even take out the front differential.
Well, and the big thing is there is some tolerance in there that you can get away with, but it varies based off of what you said, the size of the tire. The bigger the tire, the less tolerance there is because of the number of times that it travels around. So we always would suggest if you're replacing tires on a 4-wheel drive, you do all 4 of them, not 2 of them. And if you're going to replace one because of a flat, that you check to make sure that's within tolerances, it's not going to damage your drivetrain. Now, out in Fallon, you do a lot more than just drive axle repairs and service. Tell us a little bit about the other services you provide.
Well, Fallon, if you've ever been out here, it's an agricultural community, so there is a lot more, per capita, there's a lot more people out here running their tractors and cutting hay, and you know, there's a few dairies out here, so all those pieces of farm equipment run PTO drive shafts or ag shafts, we call them, agricultural shafts, and we've got the biggest inventory in northern Nevada for the agricultural, you know, side of things. Also, it's not just automotive. You know, some people don't realize that, but you know, we've been out here for 6 years, and it's slowly gotten to the point to where the farming industry definitely knows we're here, and most of them that I talk to anyway are glad that we're here, because a lot of times when they would have to wait 2-3 days, sometimes a week, I can get them done same day, and they're back up and going again.
And with quality business practices and getting the job done right the first time, it's really an honor and a privilege to have Drive Line Gear and Service on our show and a part of our community of businesses. How do they get a hold of you out there in the Fallon and your Reno store as well?
Our Fallon number, we're right on the highway, in Reno Highway. It's 5305 Reno Highway. Our phone number is 775-867-2617. And in Reno, we're on Glendale and Sparks. It's actually in Sparks, Glendale Avenue. It's 1325 Glendale. And their phone number is 775-331-4500.
That's Andy Allen with Drive Line and Gear Service out in the Fallon location. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we hope to have you back on another show in the future.
Glad to be here, Mitch. Thank you.
Thank you.